Thank you, Jody, for joining me on the call. This is just a conversation because this is just what we do as BFFs. This is just what we have these conversations all the time. And
Yes, we do.
yes, and the first thing is I had you asked you to watch a clip that I had sent from Girl Track, and let's talk about that first. Oh, you can't hardly see you. There you go.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
about that first. What did you think about that video clip that I sent? I thought it was just it was riveting to me. What did you think about
Uh,
that?
I thought it's inspiring. I
Mhm.
loved it. I love the idea of getting women out regarding health, other issues that we face. I thought it was just wonderful to see them come together and
Mhm.
support each other, and so much that I was like, I'm joining. I am definitely joining. I'm gonna become a leader
That
and
is
get
so awesome.
it out.
That is so awesome. So,
Hmm.
you know what I'm so used to because I know you, but I didn't even introduce you. I'm Pam Ford, which, the just basically just the host. I'm not doing anything anybody else can do. I just decided to just use my voice. And I invited my BFF here, and I'll let her introduce herself, just maybe 15 seconds about who you are and, your just basically why you want to participate in this conversation.
Well, I'm Jody Mankins. I am a mom of two, a wife for 26 years this year, thank God. And
Hey.
was interested in being a part of this conversation is because I have a son, first of all, that I'm very concerned about. I'm concerned about my people as a whole. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to share my point of view as a mom, as a sister in Christ, as a friend, just someone to share my voice with.
Wonderful. And the thing is that let me just ask this. Let's just the elephant that's in the room. What did you think about the George Floyd video when you first seen it?
I was devastated. I was in tears. I was angry. My initial thoughts was I called my son down. Please make sure you conform. Although George Floyd was conforming, I still had a conversation with him immediately about what's taking place here in America. I'm totally disappointed in the people that we put in place that's supposed to protect us. I don't trust them, and there has got to be some changes made.
Wow.
So my heart just went out to George Floyd's family. I
Mhm.
he though he wasn't my son, he's my son.
Mhm.
So I'm just devastated.
And I know when I first watched it, you know what, I cried, then I became angry, and then I was enraged, and I had to just take a breath and step back.
Mhm.
And I know that I had called you and we had a discussion. It was so ironic because right after that, we were together, we were hanging out.
Mhm.
And when I got home is when I first learned about the rioting. When we were together that evening, they hadn't started rioting yet. And so when
Not
I got
yet.
home, when I got home, I was watching TV and all the looting and everything going on, and I was angry, and and my first instinctively I was like, why would they start tearing up their own neighborhoods? And then watching them
They're not their neighborhoods though.
exactly,
They don't own anything in the neighborhood.
absolutely,
I
absolutely.
say they don't own anything in the neighborhood. I mean, the majority. You
Mhm.
may have an owner here, an owner there, but overall, they don't own anything. I was definitely upset initially, like, oh my God, please don't tear everything up. But then I thought
Mhm.
about it. What else do they have to do? When are you going to listen and
Mhm.
hear our cries? We've been crying. We've had tried to have a seat at the table.
Mhm.
We've multiple marches, we've done this, we've done that, and nothing seems to get your attention but your money.
Absolutely.
They
Absolutely.
went out and hit you where it counts, in your pocket.
And it was so ironic because I was telling the brothers that I said, you know, I was watching the news that night, and there was a lady, couldn't have been no more than about 18 years old, maybe 19, and
Mhm.
the news person, the reporter, had approached her and said, "So what do you think about all the looting?" You know, again, just put the camera in her face, and she said, "Well,
Uh-huh.
first of all, I'm not looting. I am protesting." She said, "My mother raised me better than that." She said,
Mhm.
"If this was just about the, this would have, you all would have probably covered it about maybe 20 minutes into the news hour, and that would have been it." She said,
Yes.
"Looting started, then you know what? It took on a whole nother face because it
Exactly.
pockets." She says, "So that's why this is going on." Well, Roz, first of all, go ahead and introduce yourself, and
Okay.
basically a minute, you know, maybe 30 seconds or so about who you are and what makes you want to engage in this conversation.
Um, okay. My name is Rosalind Klein. I am a high school math teacher.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about the subject matter. I've been trying to stay abreast of current events because I want to be able to have meaningful dialogue with my white colleagues and friends about what's going on. And how it affects the Black and brown students that they teach. And I'm here because Pam invited me.
You know, and one of the things that I want to share with you all, I know Jody know, but I didn't know if you knew, is that the first thing that I did was I had a conversation with my nieces and my nephews. You know, we had a Zoom chat conversation because I wanted to, you know, hear their perspectives on this, and they ranged from like 8 years old to 18 years old. So that conversation was quite interesting. And then about a week later, I put out a clarion call to my white friends because I was so angry. I was really depressed there for a moment. So I put a video
It's
together.
depressing.
Yes, and I put a video together, and I'd asked, you know, posted on Facebook, and I'd asked, you know what, I would love to have a conversation with my white friends. You know, get off of Facebook as far as posting and have an actual conversation with words, with faces to those words. So, you know, 3 of them had initially, you know, contacted me, and then one of them for some reason wasn't able to do it, but the 2 that did, we had a very engaging conversation. We talked about implicit biases. So I had them watch a tape that I had Googled, and it was like, and you probably heard of it, it was like peanut butter and jelly. So it was about implicit biases. So I applauded them for that conversation because, you know what, you know, like they had conveyed to me, it wasn't until they were actually sitting at home because they had no other choice because no one was working, that they started really watching TV and really seeing for the first time with a whole different lens what this thing is all about. They started doing their own research. And then that they had shared was that they started watching how people like themselves was actually going into the marches. Their kids were marching. Their kids' friends were marching. So I appreciated their openness and their rawness. You know, they were open and raw, and I appreciated that. And I appreciated them for being willing to even come on and share that conversation. So then last night, I had a conversation with the brothers, and it was an open conversation. We talked about a plethora of different things. And what I loved about men, and like I tell, like you know, like I share, because I'm not a man, I'm a Black woman. I share their skin tone and I share their race, but I don't share their bodies. And I said, we walk with you and we walk for you. When we talked about George Floyd, then when you watched that video, Roz, what was the first thing that you thought about?
Of George?
Yes.
Uh, I think I couldn't watch it for a long time, to be honest. I heard about it, and that just wasn't something that I wanted to see. And then when I watched it, I experienced anger and then sadness, and I was just angry at the way that the cop just had his hands in his pocket.
Chilling.
He just had
As
his
if
hands in his pocket.
you're like, yeah,
And
so what?
it was nothing to him. And when you look at the amount of time that he just sat there with his hand, the man was not resisting. He was handcuffed, so there was no reason to hold him in that position. So just the disregard for his humanity made me angry. But then to hear this man screaming, it made me emotional, because I think as a Black woman, I heard something different in his pleas than a white person would hear. Like, I heard a grown man, and he wasn't a small man either, a grown man just feeling helpless and hopeless and being dehumanized for the people to see who were standing around.
Okay, so now let's talk about, the masks that we wear. I up on Maya Angelou, we wear the masks. And I'd just like to know, what are you all thoughts of that poem? And then I'll share with you my thoughts of it. And then we'll talk about the different masks that we, that all of us wear on a daily basis. Who want to start? Jody?
That's fine. I thought the poem was great. Unlike you and Roz, you being pretty moved and tearful about it, I was not. I do agree we wear a great deal of masks daily. I know Roz said she feels like that is kind of fake, but for me, it is not. And I say that because when situation arise at work and my white counterpartners may make a statement or a joke, I usually at that moment, if you're okay making the joke, then I'm totally comfortable with addressing that joke that you just made. If you're saying things that's uncomfortable to me, then I have no problem addressing that with you. I think they do it thinking that ha ha ha, shuffling, dancing, that's all we do. So they think because we're in a situation where it's predominantly maybe white and I may be the only Black person in the room, that the whole team is going to side together. Well, I'm okay with addressing the whole team.
Absolutely.
If you're laughing and thinking it's okay, then I'm totally fine cracking your face. I have no problem with that.
Absolutely.
So I do agree. We wear a great deal of masks, and I don't fake with not one of them. This is who I am. I have to put them on, but I don't believe it's fake.
And then, Roz, let me go, and then you can address what Jody said. Now, with me, one of the things that my mother taught us early on is that if you can't take it, you don't give it.
That's right.
And so when I am around people and you start some type of, if I'm the only Black in the room or maybe two of us in the room and you crack a joke or whatever, get it, will you give it? And I think that, and then I believe that, first of all, if you feel that comfortable enough around me to say that joke, then I got to check me. Because at the end of the day, it's like, how dare you? And so, because I believe there's always some validity in the joke. I don't care what, there's always a little bit of truth in that joke. You're joking, really truth. And you want to get my,
what do they call that? Stacking but cracking.
Absolutely. That's exactly what that is. So to me, when you do that, that's telling me really who you are. And you're laughing because you don't have enough guts and balls to stand in your own, stand on your own and say what you really feel. So that's how I feel about that. Now, as far as the masks that we wear, we all wear them. But I want Roz to address what she got out of the poem, and then I want to delve into the actual mask that we wear. Go ahead, Roz.
The poem it resonated with me on almost every point. Every time she laughed,
Mhm.
I could see myself, and I see the mask, as Jody was alluding to, as being fake, because when I put a mask on, I cover up what my real face is. What Jody described sounds more to me like wearing different hats than it does wearing
Okay.
different masks,
Okay,
because
I
she
can take
plays a
that.
lot of different roles, but she is her authentic self in
Mhm.
those roles.
Mhm.
That's what I strive to be when I grow up, just like
Mhm.
Jody.
Mhm.
But as a
Really?
mask wearer, I find myself hiding who I am to fit into whiteness. I've experienced from high school on up to the present time being the only Black person in the room. And it's become part of my personality to act a certain way when I'm around white people, to articulate a little bit more so that I'll be respected as one of those who is articulate,
Because you
to
are.
crack the kind of jokes that they would laugh at, and to make them feel comfortable when they crack jokes that are offensive to me. And as I'm walking through my racial identity journey,
Mhm.
I feel more emboldened to be my authentic self, and not wear masks so much, but I'm definitely not there yet because of who I am in my home life, to my children, to the Black and brown students who I teach who need me to be in place. I have to balance not making people so uncomfortable that they want to remove me from the situation. Because
Mm.
I don't want to become the angry Black woman who is no longer doing her job because I'm always calling out what is racist, and the
Spade.
person doing it does not perceive it as being racist. So I become the person who is misinterpreting everything, who is hypersensitive about everything. And so I put that mask on to operate in front of my colleagues. Then I put on another mask in front of my Black and brown students to coach them and how to navigate the system,
Mm.
and helping them to, I don't want to say gloss over, but deal with the injuries that they suffer because of systemic racism, and keep pushing them along when deep down inside, the real me is hurting for them. I'm hurting for me, and I'm angry at the system. So it's necessary to wear masks for me, which are phony,
Mhm.
in order to do what God has called me to do.
Mm. Um, when I think about how Maya alluded to it in the poem as that survival apparatus. Um, that's what I look at the masks as being. And, with me, I guess all of us, I think, has been in some capacity only Black in certain situations because of the different types of, jobs or whatever we've had, whether it be out in the community
Right.
representing our employer or just, representing other agencies or what have you. Now, when I look at masks, I really try my very, very best not to wear one, but I know I do. And so what happens is I've never been good at trying to fake it, because I'll have people say, girl, stop that. That's not you. That's not you. But the thing is, I remember a situation that a couple months ago when let's say, for example, like when the unemployment happened. And so people were getting like that, people were starting to get that extra stipend each week.
Mm-hmm.
Had a colleague of mine just say, you know what, that is just too much money for people to be getting, and that's gonna make them not want to go to work and woo woo woo. And I got enraged, and I looked at her. I said, excuse me. I said, first of all, people want to work. I said, so you know what, you can't tell me what someone else
And we've been working.
with their money. And I said, so it's just like anybody else. Like we get our tax money, we do what we want to do. So just like when everybody got their stimulus check, they did what they wanted to do. I said, but don't put everybody in that same box because they may not spend their money, being, being frugal. People spend their money the way they want to spend it. But how dare you say that, oh, you know what? They don't need that much money. That's just going to make them lazy, because most of the people, they want to work. Because think about it. I didn't have any issue with it. You know why? I said, because when I think about, the people in Congress and all these people that's making money off the backs of our labor, this was pennies in the bucket for them. If they were making, let's say, a few $1,000s for those couple months, they were making a few $1 million for a couple months, off that little change. So the thing is, she looked at me and I said, I'm serious. And so like I may joke about some things, like, something may happen and I may joke about a person, but when it comes to that type of stuff, I'm not doing it. I'm not having that conversation with you, because you don't know what state of mind people are in when people step into any type of environment, whether it be coming into it for whatever they may need, So that if I had a mask on with her, it was removed that day. It was removed that day because I don't play that, and so she sort of looked at me sort of startled. And she said, oh, well, that's just what I believe. I'm like, and that's fine if that's what you believe, but you don't need to convey that to me. I said, because all of us is one check from being on unemployment, one check away. It's by the grace of God that we're still even employed in our different capacities, So that was one thing I thought,
I'm curious
Go ahead.
I said, I'm curious to wonder what made her think they don't want to work. We've been working.
Right. Absolutely.
Where did you get that idea that we don't want to work or it's going to make us lazy? We're the ones in the fields. Where were you?
Absolutely. And this is the thing.
I can't.
Jody, I want to hear your part, hear what you have to say. And then I want to talk about education, because you know what? I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted about trying to defend people. You know what? It's the toughest part is trying to defend us with us. Sometimes that's exhausting. That's very taxing. But Jody, let me get your take on it. Then we move to the next thing, because it's a lot to unpack.
What do you want my take on?
Basically on the masks. Because we all wear them.
Yeah, I do. As what I said, I agree. We do wear a mask, and maybe when I was listening to it, I agree with Roz. Maybe I was thinking more of hats instead of a mask, because I wasn't necessarily thinking that putting on a mask when she was reading the poem. I was viewing it as just a different face or a different hat that we would wear in our daily lives, and I think we do. So I agreed with everything that she said. And as I stated, I feel like we do wear different masks or different hats, so to speak, on a daily basis.
I think that the three of us are in different places, though, on how religiously we wear those masks. There was one line at the beginning of the poem where she talked about seeing a woman smile and laugh on the bus, and she thought it was odd, but when she really looked at her, she saw that what looked like a smile was just the tensing of the muscles in her face.
Yes.
And the laugh was really just a sound that she was making as I think the bus went over every bump or something. So it sounded more to me like pain in disguise than a laugh. And so throughout the poem, she talked about painful things happening and how we laugh. And she even laughed, like in a very exaggerated laugh.
Yes.
And that's what made me think about the mask that I wear. And I'm learning about myself in this late stage of the game, that I cover up my pain with this face that helps me to fit in. And I justify it by saying, well, I need to be here to do what I have to do, when actually it hurts me to sit at a table and know that I'm the smartest one in the room. Smartest and eldest in my profession, especially when it comes to educating Black and brown students. And I'm constantly criticized and put to the side, and I have to temper my words so that I'm not even pushed further away from the table, being viewed as an angry Black woman. And it's exhausting, Pam. It's exhausting educating us on us, educating our kids on us, and educating our white counterparts on us, who, and here's the part that makes me put the mask back on and be quiet. when I'm vulnerable enough to take it off and share an experience, and that experience is judged as, oh, well, are you sure that's what really happened? So it's not taken as truth because it's not their lived experience. So how could that be true? How could that really be happening? That makes me put my mask back on because I've exposed myself, and you're doubting my truth in my face. I know when I'm not in the room, that doubt turns to criticism. And so it makes me put my mask back on in the room and then do what I have to do when I close the doors of my classroom. And that's why that poem made me kind of emotional when I saw her crying at the end.
Well, I know the thing is when I read it, and you all know I love Maya Angelou, but the thing is when she thought about her forefathers, the different Black men that sat on the benches, and they were laughing, and they said, "We did this so you could survive. We took so you didn't have to take it." That it just pierced my soul, and I think about that every day. That we take it. That's coming after us don't have to.
I feel like though we as a generation kind of lost our purpose and our way in doing this so that generations after us could have it better. I think as parents, we definitely do that. I think as educators working in the jobs that we have, we do it. But as a people as a whole, I think we've kind of lost our direction and smiling so that our kids can be more authentic, or the next generation can be more authentic. And that's where the exhaustion in educating us about us comes in. And that is heavy work, but I hate to see that issue. I hate to see that issue combined with the issue of systemic racism, because they're two totally different problems. And when you put them together, it removes the responsibility off of people in power to address systemic racism. It's like when you talk about police brutality and people say, well, Black on Black crime is really high. And if you care so much, Black on Black crime is a problem. It's a separate issue.
Totally
that
separate.
should not be dealt with on this platform.
Absolutely.
Systemic racism needs to be addressed. Black people killing Black people on the street have not been sworn to protect and serve. That's a different issue from the police who are doing it and not being punished for it. If you catch a Black person on the street who shot a Black person, they're going to jail. A police officer can put his knee on a man's neck or shoot a kid in the back who's running away and never even be charged with a crime. That's a problem that needs to be addressed in a separate bucket from Black on Black crime.
My little nephew, who's like, 12, one of the things he said on the tape, he said, you know what? Why is it that just all of a sudden, he said, why is it that when Black people kill each other's Black on Black crime, but when white people kill each other, it's just a crime? Or Hispanic the crime, it blew my
mind. White on white crime, right?
Right. And he said, so why is it Black on Black crime when Black people kill each other? It blew my mind, and I was just sort of like blank stare because I didn't know what to say to him. I
think that's a term that has come into play to conflate the issue of police brutality against Black people.
Yes.
So then you bring that up, and now well, do you really care? Because you're not addressing this up here. Let's not deflect from the issue that's on the table.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Jody.
And if you presented that to them to say white on white crime, they would be like, oh my God, that's absolutely not true. But in the white neighborhood, if someone Black was going over there killing, you would know about it. But the deaths that you hear about in Schaumburg or wherever, they're not Black because you would have them in jail by now. So you know it's white on white, but you gloss right over that. You never even mention it. Every time on the news, when someone Black has done, Black men did this, Black that, but every other crime that's committed, you never hear them mention the race because it's you. So you don't even address you.
Absolutely. Yes, it's the truth. It's the truth. And you know what, ladies, the thing is that it pains all of us. And that's, I think, one of the reasons you have so many people. I know when I even, like, I have a nonprofit, and I know even when I started that, it was because people give, you know, people with a criminal record a second chance. I'm not saying career criminals. I'm saying people that may have done something stupid 20 years ago. They paid their debt to society. They deserve a second chance. So the thing is, because I couldn't get enough people to stand up, my white counterparts, because those are the ones with the money and the power, I said, you know what, I'm going to start my own. And so that's what I did. And no, I'm not rich by any stretch, but the thing is, it's like, it is my goal to be able to help them find employment, get training, and they may even want to start some of their own businesses. Because at the end of the day, when you keep people down, you got, like Reverend Al said, you keep your foot on their neck, they're going to respond, period. They're going to respond. And people get angry. And with us, we sort of, like I said, we know how to put our hats on, take our mask on, put our mask back on, but the thing is when we come home, we let it out. We let it out, and that's stressful. And that goes back to that, that tape, the Girl Trek tape, Joe, when the children were just basically talking about the things that we hold in, and it's like, when we exhale, we got to look out for our own health and wealth. Because you know what? Health is wealth. It really is. Because if we don't take care of us, who's going to take care of us? Thing, and I know this will probably take us to the end, that I want to talk about is, what are the next steps? What can, from you all's perspective, us as women do to try to combat some of the pressing issues? I think all of us in some capacity, has been mentor to younger people, in some regards to older people. But the biggest issues that I've always found, and I've been trying to do this for years, is I think that as we get older, we need professional mentoring. And it's harder to find a professional mentor. I can find 1,000,001 of my girls, old former teachers that I know that love me because they know who I am on the inside. But I'm talking professional mentors that are not my friends. They are my mentors. And so many people, particularly Black and brown women that go into the workforce, they go in not knowing anything. Mama's just so happy that their baby graduated from college, and his first job, but then they go in there, they start having problems immediately. Why? Because no one has mentored them how to deal with, their manager, deal with their teammates. So it's like, what? They react instead of act. So what do you all think do you believe in the professional mentoring? And if not, what else do you think would be another step? Because I tend to believe that's it. Because I think if I had that earlier on, I would probably be a lot further in my career had I had a professional mentor, whether it be a woman or a man. Because I tried finding it, I just couldn't find it.
Knowledge is definitely power. So we definitely have to continue to share with one another and empower each other. And I think more than that, I think we have to uplift each other. So often we're so worried about, the next person doing better than us, but that's the goal. That should be all of our goal, to see everyone, the next person, take it to the next level. So I think the next step is we're going to have to educate. We are going to have to share even the pain. It needs to be shared, because if you don't know where you come from, there's no way you're going to get to where you're going. You got to know where you come from. So we have to be able to share with each other without the fear of you're going to be better. That's what our goal should be, to be better.
Absolutely. I'm in total agreement.
I agree.
Roz?
I think that there are two ways you can look at, like, just having a professional mentor. The first way, it costs money. Like, there are coaches, professional life coaches for any profession that you can think of. But the second thing that I think we have to push for, as we as a society begin to address the systemic racism, is in institutions, when new graduates come in or new employees come in, they should be assigned mentors, and mentors that they can trust, mentors who will really kind of show them the ropes and walk them through. When I started in the district that I'm working in, they have a program, all new teachers to the district, no matter how many years experience you get a mentor. Depending on who the mentor is, you know, the people volunteer, so that does not always pan out to be somebody who is looking out for your best interest, as Jody said. But I had a mentor who was just phenomenal, who just taught me the ropes. She helped me with written rules and unwritten rules. Everything from where the bathroom is to how much you should put on the form for your union dues, and who's looking over your shoulder, and which classrooms not to hang out in. Like she made me feel more comfortable in my skin in that environment. And that kind of mentorship is priceless, but it's really hit or miss with getting the right person. But I think companies, institutions, you know, corporations, education should institute programs where people are vetted and interviewed to be assigned to incoming for a year, for at least a year. Somebody you could go to ask questions, and just have a list of things that they help them to understand, and don't just assume you know how to do it. Because you know what? When you come in and you look like everybody who's there, people are naturally drawn to you, and you get that mentorship, but it's not written, like it's unwritten. So you have an advantage over the person who comes in who doesn't look like everybody else.
Ooh.
So I think companies and institutions have to be intentional about doing exactly what you said, Pam.
And what about us? What role should we play? Because the thing is, even going into the workplace, it's like I think we needed, you know, when I look at, you know, the different people that come into a job that's prepared, trying to get prepared, what role would we as Black women, educated women, because you know what, we were always told, you know, we were told, you know what, you got 5 or 10 times better than the next white person. Okay, I'm just gonna put it out there, because guess what? So we found ourselves going to school, getting a higher education, because that's what we do. And I thank God, because I believe that all of us are in the positions that we're in because of that. What happens when the education isn't enough? You know, you got the education, but now you need more than that. And I just believe us as us as Black women, we need to start our own thing. And we mentor others, but what about those of us that need mentor? And some of us may not even know we need it. You know,
Right.
We don't even know that we need it because, oh, well, I'm educated, so I don't need it. No, you do need it, because it's the things that you want to do outside your workplace. The only way you're going to be able to do that is to be able to have somebody show you how to do it. That's important. So ladies, in closing, I just like your thoughts on just in general, like, you know, we talked about where do we go from here. What do you think the next, you know, your next step individually is? You know, what do you feel that your next step is individually? To share your thoughts. I'll start with you, Jody.
Well, I'm gonna continue to do what I've been doing. More so than anything, I'm gonna continue to pray, not just for myself, but for this country, for people in general. I, as you can see, I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm excited to see, you know, the young people get out and march and those things, but it's gonna take a lot of work. And I understand that, and I'm okay getting my hands dirty. Whatever the need is, that's what I'm going to do, whatever that is. And honestly, I can't tell you today what it is, but whatever it is, I'm willing to do that for the greater good of everybody.
Perfect. Right.
I think for me, if I don't hone in on a thing or 2 things that I can do, it all becomes overwhelming. It's like so much needs to be done, as Jody said. Like, where do you even begin? Or you even start to question, am I really making a difference? So for me, I'm going to be intentional about wrapping my arms around Black and brown students, because I have the unique blessing of being able to influence kids from my classroom. And so that's what I'm going to do, and be intentional about making Black and brown students believe that their life matters. And it's a matter of just speaking life into situations. And we, as Black women, I think, do it so naturally that we almost don't feel like we're doing anything. But I got a email from a Black female student at my high school right after school ended, which let me know that I have to continue doing what I'm doing and be even more intentional. And the email, it was a meme that says, "How old were you when you had your first Black teacher?" And her words were, "Miss Klein, this made me think of you, because," now I met her as a freshman in high school. She said, "You were the first Black teacher I ever had. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged in a classroom and that I wasn't a part of the problem." And that brought tears to my eyes, because our kids, whether they know how to articulate it or not, or whether they realize it or not, they don't feel like they belong, especially those who are not successful academically in classrooms. They feel like they're always made to feel like they're a problem, or they don't belong, or they're not smart enough, or they're not good enough. So I'm going to be intentional about speaking life into those kids.
And that is going to go a long way.
Yes.
I have so many kids. That's my auntie. That's my cousin. That's absolutely I am. That's all day. Oh, I didn't know this was your nephew. I didn't know that was your absolutely it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know them from Adam, but when they see us, always give me a hug. How you doing in class? What's wrong with you? It's the connection. It is the connection, the relationship, and you have to do that.
Keep it up.
Yeah.
And I just think, because I get a lot of this on my Facebook page, because I subbed years ago, and these kids are now adults, and they remember me. They'll come up to me, or they'll send me a Facebook message. Do you remember? And they'll put pictures up from when they were in junior high school, and some of the things that I told them about being Black and who they are. And a piece of a poem, they'll say it was always something with Maya Angelou, and they would laugh. They said, "I remember that to this day." But I think for me, the goal with me is to be intentional about starting to have these adult conversations with adults.
Yeah.
I told you all that I had a conversation with some men last night, and I would like to have a co-ed conversation within the next week, with the men that I had the conversation with and us. I want to start having various conversations, maybe, once a month, once every couple of weeks, so that we can start talking about things, because it's just not us, it's us.
So we could turn into like red table talk.
Okay, because at the end of the day, they had a lot to say. And the thing is, we have a lot to say, especially with what's going on. So, I'm coming back at you. So I want to, so they said, "Oh, we ready. We ready to have this conversation. We ready to have this conversation." So I'm excited about that. And I'll be getting back with you all in the next probably week to see if we can schedule something maybe like after the holiday. And it will probably be this time, because I think it's important, even if it's just like maybe twice a month, maybe an hour conversation, because the conversation needs to be had.
Okay.
Group hug, ladies. Group hug.
Woo, 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 woo.
Thank you all so much. Roz, Jody, got nothing but love for you, girl. Always. So once Rona is over, we're going to all maybe get together and have a adult conversation, and maybe an adult beverage, maybe some ice water with some lemon.
That's not
really. That's your adult. Yeah, Rob's man, you'll be doing something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
But look, I love you, ladies, and wonderful conversation. And I will get back with you all soon on that. Okay.
Love you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.